Welcome back to Boring Reviews.
Boring land.
Oh, just kidding.
Blasphemer!
Hello,
Right. Boring Review Nation!
Kind of pointless.
We know all things.
All right, welcome back to Boring Reviews. Nick here,
Asjad there.
right there.
Hey.
And thank you so much for joining us today. Super excited. Got my special guest, Asjad from Cricket Forest 2.0. If you like cricket, especially Pakistani cricket, but he looks at all cricket around the world, check out his channel, Cricket Forest 2.0, and give him a like, give him a subscribe. He also is a film fan, and like I said, he is from Pakistan, and so we are looking at my very first Pakistani film, The Legend of Maula Jatt. We're going to dive deep into it. Hopefully you saw my instant reaction. Check that out, and then come back here. And I'm super excited that Asjad, not just a friend of the channel, but a friend of myself, is here with me to talk about this movie because he's going to tell you what he thought being Pakistani. I'm going to tell you what I thought, just, American perspective, but we're also going to tell you what you think about just being a film fan of this movie, The Legend of Maula Jatt. Asjad can tell you all about it. This thing not only, correct me if I'm wrong, is the top grossing Pakistani film of all time worldwide. That's what the one article told me, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. But it's very widely accepted. I couldn't find too much on Rotten Tomatoes, but Fandango's score 98%. I think IMDb 9 out of 10. This movie had a lot of hype from the trailer, and it's living up to the hype in every metric you can look at right now. So we're going to be talking about what we thought of the film, maybe its impact, the fact that it's really kind of a record-breaking, record-setting type situation. But with all that being said, don't forget to like and subscribe here as well. Asjad, I'm going to turn it to you. I want you to let the people know what else did I miss as far as the accolades, and kind of for anyone that doesn't know, hopefully we have people joining us that aren't too familiar with the Pakistani film industry or with this movie. Kind of let them know why this is kind of a big deal, this movie.
Right. So first of all, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. But in terms of the Pakistani cinema landscape, this has over 110 crores in terms of box office at the moment. In about 14 days of its release, it has outgrossed any Pakistani movie by like 100, about 20-30%. The next one behind it is about 75 crores or 80 crores or something like that. So definitely this is way far ahead in terms of record breaking stats and box office and everything. So that's one thing. You mentioned a couple of scores, 98% and 9 out of 10. The huge reason for that is, number one, the director, Bilal Lashari. I think he's directed one movie called Var, which came out about 9 years ago, 8-9 years ago. And that was a very, very good, well-made, slick action movie, the likes that Pakistan doesn't usually see, right? So after that point, people were waiting for his next venture, which was supposed to release sometime in 2019. And then due to certain copyright issues of the title of the titular hero and the title of the film, it was delayed. Then it was delayed. Then it was the thing that no one wants to talk about anymore, right? Okay, for like a couple of years, right?
Production, you know what? Yes.
Exactly. And then it's finally released. And because of that hiatus of about 3 years, the hype just kept building and building, because the trailer came out like 3 years ago and everyone was like, this looks amazing, right? I'm sure they've done some more touch-ups in these 3 years just to try and add some blood here or add some better graphics or VFX like in the background. You'll probably I'll probably talk about that as well, but those are the initial points I want to touch before I go into the movie. So The Legend of Maula Jatt, in my opinion, one of the best Pakistani movies I've ever seen, one of the best probably the best made Pakistani film of all time, one of the best Punjabi films, my favorite, like my favorite Punjabi film that I've seen, but one of the best Punjabi films ever in the history of Pakistani cinema, be it even in South Asian cinema. Again, people are going to hate me for this one. I've seen a few Punjabi films from India. I've seen quite a few from Pakistan. I think this is the best one out of the lot. The best description of this movie I read somewhere, and that is the way I described it to so many people before the movie released, which was, it's Gladiator mixed with Game of Thrones. And oh my God, it was Gladiator mixed with Game of Thrones. The way they set things up, there were scenes which just gave me vibes of. Can I give spoilers, or are we doing
Yeah, so this is, I was going to say, this is full spoilers. So
Okay.
you heard him say he liked it. Let me just let you right now. You saw my instant reaction. I liked it a lot too. If you don't want no spoilers, because trust me, if you haven't seen it, you want to check out this movie. But my man Asjad right here, he always wants me to give him the spoilers before he watches it. So if you like him, stick around and we'll continue.
Right. Back to spoilers. If you remember, in Gladiator, there's a scene where Russell Crowe is in jail and this man comes up and has a discussion with him, and then he gets all pumped up and he does the speech when he goes out and thrashes everyone as a Spaniard. There was a scene in this where Maula Jatt's character has been through it all, right? He's beaten everyone. He's like, yeah, I'm the boss, doesn't matter anymore. And all he cares about now, moving forward, is I want to know what this trauma is. I want to know about my parents. I want to know about why I'm here, for lack of a better term. So he's just sitting down somewhere, and this old man, which people would recognize because they saw the start of the movie, but if by chance, if you missed the start of the film, you'd be like, oh, who's this guy? Why is he randomly in his stable or in his cage? And then Maula Jatt has this interaction, and that guy's like, I'm not your family, but I'm not your family. I'm not a stranger to you, as though, even though you think I might be a stranger to you. Come to this particular location tomorrow and I'll tell you everything and I'll answer all of your questions, or something along those lines. That just gave me the Gladiator vibes. In terms of the Game of Thrones side of things, the fight for the throne on the Nut clan, the way friggin' like I was waiting for Nuri Nut. Now I want to go, and I know I'm going to keep talking. So sorry, Nick. And people might be like, "Where's Nick's thoughts?" I'm really sorry, but I have to.
Nobody cares. It's all good.
The original film had the actor Sultan Rai playing Maula Jatt, and you had Mustafa Qureshi playing Nuri Nut. Everyone remembers Nuri Nut for his swag and his relaxed style and all that stuff. But he did get loud, but he didn't get like super loud like the Sultan Rai, the Maula Jatt character does in the previous movie. In this one, though, the way Hamza Ali Abbasi, the guy who plays Nuri Nut, the way he intensifies the entire personality of Nuri Nut is just like, it's so different but so similar at the same time. And the way he just says Sonia, I know you're like, what does that mean? But yeah, my dear, or beloved, or whatever, like
I remember it, the translation. Yeah.
So the way he says that, it's so different but at the same time it's so similar. It just makes you think of like nostalgia, but you're like, dude, this is so good. It reminded me of, I don't know if you ever watched Prison Break, right? But
yes,
it reminded me of
the first 3 seasons. Yeah.
Right. So it reminded me of that big bad in season 1 who everyone was scared of at one point, right? It just reminded me of that. It also reminded me of Dawn 2, where Shah Rukh Khan like fights. I don't know if you've seen Dawn 2 yet, or
absolutely.
Yeah, okay, where Shah Rukh Khan has that fight within the jail, right? There's so many films that it was reminding me of. So I absolutely loved the way they set up Nuri Nut's character, and the way he was so playful but angry, and he didn't seem like a bad guy, right? Yes, he's a gangster and he's shown to be that, but his inside, like his heart, didn't seem like a bad person. That's all it looked like. Well, even when he went and spoiler alert, Maula Jatt has a stepbrother of sorts. I believe his name is Muda, right?
Muda,
played by Faris Shafi, right?
Yeah.
Your favorite,
I
right?
didn't. I remember him being in it, but I forgot about it. So I didn't even realize that was him until you reminded me when I was texting you. It was crazy. He did a great job.
I know, right? Really well. So when Faris Shafi's like, yeah, I'm Maula Jatt, or like, if you're gonna fight Maula, like you fight me. And Hamza Ali Basi was like, no, you can't be this guy. And then he kind of says something about his family, and then he loses his mind. I'm like, until that point, all he wanted to do was just fight someone at his level.
A worthy
he didn't care
opponent.
about it. Worthy opponent, definitely. And he was like, this guy? Nah, it's fine. And then as soon as he badmouths him, he was like, okay, now you've disrespected me. Now you're dead, right? I'm going to kill you. That's basically what he did. So it was great. Like, I know I'm kind of scattered in my thoughts, but the best way to put my feelings about this movie is, I loved the dialogues. I'm really sorry. I wish you understood Punjabi, because the dialogues in Punjabi were so much better than the translations in the subtitles. Because
Oh, I'm
I
sure.
was reading the subtitles while watching it. I was like, yeah, that's not as good. Like the analogies and the subtext behind a
The
lot of the
trash talk, right?
yeah, dude, that prison scene, goodness me.
Don't you love it when Maula Jatt's like, words aren't going to make anything
Ex-
happen. I'm paraphrasing
exactly.
him. And the guy he just goes for another one. This is what I'm gonna cut you from like what's it, the bottom until I get to the top of your head or something like that. Like he's like, dude, those are just words. Let's actually do it right now and see who's gonna win. I loved it.
It was so good, and literally, I was so giddy in my chair watching that interaction where he's like, "I'm so sorry, my dad hit you," and then I had to kill him, right? So,
He's
like,
crazy. He is
but you
such a
understand.
soldier because to your point, all he wanted was a worthy opponent. And his own father, which he's annoyed with or whatever, but his own father hits him from behind, which you can see any bad guy on screen ever do. Like, we don't follow the rules. It's Cobra Kai, baby, no mercy, right? And Nori is he's so offended.
Yeah,
Before that, they have a whole celebration. You're going to be the new Sardar. You are the man. Welcome home, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, I don't want to celebrate. That was a tool I just beat up back there.
yeah,
That's not even worth my time. I don't deserve a celebration. I'm going to go sulk. And so when he finally, like, he's just like, it's like any average person find the person they fall in love with or something. He finally gets that thing he wants. His dad cheats him out of it, and he kills him. I mean, he just takes him out. That was gangster right there.
I loved it. I'm sorry, so
Committed.
sadistic of me, right? But I absolutely loved the way they showed certain fight sequences. That being said, I just want to talk to you about some of the reservations. The biggest reservation for me was at the start of the movie, the first like 20, 25 minutes, they didn't show a lot of the bloody, violent scenes. I don't know if that was the same in Pakistan or anywhere else in the East, but I know people have said that there were scenes that were cut out or were kind of edited in a different way for the Western audience because it seemed a bit too cruel or gory. And I'm not sure why.
That's interesting. It actually
Yeah.
says, wait, let me just say, because I mentioned my instant reaction. There was a glitch in the movie I saw. And again, this was the first showing that in my area here in Las Vegas that it was shown. Went to the very first show because I'm super excited for this movie. But there was a glitch and we didn't get the full 2.5 hours. We got a shorter version to the point where we noticed it when it was over. We talked to the management. Long story short, the thing I'm happy about is they're going to be able to fix that for everyone else going forward the next 5 days so they can see the full cut. So I can't say 100%, but there was blood. There was blood splatter. If there was more gore, like severed limbs where you can see like the blood coming out, didn't see that. But there was a lot of blood splattering. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
what you saw too, or if you didn't see that.
Yeah, I saw blood splattering, but there were scenes where I was like, they should have shown the severed head. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say, right? I wanted to see the
Right.
severed head, and they didn't. And it looked like they had post edited it just for the Western audience, rather than that being an actual edit for the movie for the final product. But that was my one reservation. Another reservation was unfortunately Myra Khan's character, so the love interest of Maula Jatt, her Punjabi unfortunately just didn't hit me the right way. I probably her Punjabi is better than mine, all right? I'm not gonna lie, but it just didn't hit the same tone as everyone else's within that film. Everyone's dialect was really good. Everyone's pace in terms of delivering their dialogues, everyone's facial expressions with the words they're saying worked very well. But unfortunately, hers just didn't seem to resonate with me. And I'm glad I'm not the only one because I got a lot of messages when I messaged my friends and stuff saying, "Oh, I watched the movie," and they're like, "Yeah, apart from Maida Khan, I didn't see anything wrong with the film." I was like, "Okay, so it's not just me. It's not just me. It was just her performance didn't hit me the right way. Everyone else, Humayma Malik, the sister of Nurinat, dude, oh my! Again, I don't watch Game of Thrones, but I know of characters, and she reminded me of, I think, Cersei, the evil queen, right, in Game of Thrones. Remind me of her, the way that she just went out. And there's a scene at the start of the film. You know, I'm talking about the severed head. So what happens is, and I don't know if you saw this part or not, but I'm just going to talk through it, and I want to see a reaction. Nuri Nath is in jail because he has no opponent, so he's like, I'm going to chill, right? And his brother wants the title of the Sardar, and the father's like, no, you can't. Nuri's the rightful owner. But the entire clan, the entire Nath clan's like, no, no, no. One of the other's sons is the new Sardar. He needs to be the Sardar, and he's a really like strapping young man, as people might say, right? And you can tell he's probably really into it, and he can be a good leader for them. So the sister comes in, and this is her entrance in the movie. She walks up, she's like, "Oh, you want to be Sardar? Okay, cool." She gets the pagdi. I don't know what pagdi is in English, like the thing, the crown thing,
The
right?
turban.
Turban. Thank you. Right? Takes the turban, walks across to him. She's like, "You want this turban, right?" And stands next to him, stands next to that guy's father who's sitting in his chair with the father's sword next to him. Grabs the sword and cuts the guy's head off.
Didn't
Right?
see that scene.
Right? Picks his head up, shows it to them, puts it on the table, and says, "You wanted your son to have the turban? Here you go. There's your son with the turban."
They kept referencing the heads around her. That makes complete sense now.
Yeah, it was amazing. Oh, it
Because
was
she
so
says
good.
it in the jail when she goes up to Maula Jatt and she says, "Listen, a lot of heads in this jail or whatever. I know what I'm."
Mhm.
That makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to interject here a little bit. So this was my very first Pakistani film, and I can easily say it's the best Pakistani film I've ever seen.
Yes, it is.
But one for one. But the thing about this film, even with some of it being that we didn't get the full version, this was a film that did not look to me to be from a country that does not have I don't want to say the resources, but maybe the track record of
Yeah,
like
agreed.
America, England, India, where the film industry is so huge. I don't know. I'm going to look it up. I don't know anything about the Pakistani film industry. I don't know if they have movies every weekend like the US and India. I don't know if it's a few times a year. I don't know if it's focuses more on a certain genre, because I know like the OSTs, all that kind of stuff is big. I just don't know. But if this was from a film industry that, let's say, does not have the same track record, you wouldn't be able to tell from this movie. This movie looked like it was made by a very polished director, film writer. And you said this is what, his second film, right? And his
Basically,
last
yeah,
one was
yeah.
like 9 years ago. It's incredible. Fawad Khan, I did a little bit of research on him. You would know a lot more about him. Correct me if I'm not wrong. He was a singer first in his group before he turned into acting, right?
So he was an actor back
I
in
know
the
he was in
mid
the
90s.
Pepsi Battle of the Bands in like 2002.
Yeah. So back mid to late 90s, he was an actor on a drama serial for like a
Okay.
season or something. Then he went into his band, went on Pepsi Battle of the Bands. I think they were second.
Yeah,
Their
finished
group
second.
became huge. Entity Paradigm with Zulfi, obviously, you're one of your best friends, right? And then
I wish.
from that point, he kind of the band disbanded, for lack of a better term, and he went into acting. And when he went into acting, he did a movie which, for me, is in the top two. So it's Legend of Maula Jatt and Khuda Ke Liye are my two favorite Pakistani films. Right? People might say they're too serious. It's just my take on it. I'm not a big fan of stupid comedy. So for me, like I prefer kind of serious films, and Khuda Ke Liye to me is amazing. And he's like really young in that film. He's in his mid-20s or something. So he looks it, and he's like the young actor, and everyone else is so much far more experienced than he is. And even in that film, he pulls it off. He does a pretty decent job. From that point onwards, he goes into TV shows and dramas, and this is what the big difference between Pakistani uh, film and TV and Indian film and TV. If you go back a few years before, Netflix and Amazon kind of got really big in the areas, was that Pakistan's films were horrendous, and then they had one good one every couple of years. The TV shows, about 50% of the time, they were good. By good, I mean people were actually invested like properly, and they aren't season based. They're just one off 23 episode season of a show,
Okay.
or a 30 episode one, or if it starts to track, then they're like, okay, we'll extend it to 60, right, or something like that. But it's usually not like seasons like in the States. The Indian shows are not just seasons, they just run every day, right? And again, this is my limited experience. And if I'm wrong, please tell me. But my experience is watching Indian shows from like early 2010s and then comparing it to Pakistani shows in early 2010s. And the quality, there's a stark difference between the TV show quality, but in the opposite direction with movies. And the Pakistani movies, like I said, one good one every couple of years. You look on Wikipedia, look at the highest grossing films or something, right? And you'll be surprised that, oh, there's not that many movies that come out in Pakistan, and they don't because
Crazy.
because people don't want to go watch Pakistani movies. Yes, they are released at separate times, but the big days are the two Eids that movies get released. This one was initially supposed to release Eid 2018 to 2019, but because they couldn't find a way to release it, so they released it at a time when usually Pakistani films don't get released, right? Which is October, random time of the year, and it's made double its budget. It's already made double its budget in 2 weeks, right? It's amazing. So yes, I agree with you. I don't know what your point was. I think, oh yeah, you mentioned about Fawad Khan, and I know I've gone on like 7 minutes on a Fawad Khan rant, but
I love it.
I'm a huge Fawad Khan fan. I loved him in Miss Marvel as the great granddad, right? I loved him as a singer. I like the way he acts. I even loved him in Bollywood when he did a few movies, right? What was it? Khoobsurat and Ae Dil Hai Mushkil and maybe another one I can't remember. He was actually going to play Virat Kohli in MS Dhoni, but then things happened and then he didn't play Virat Kohli in
Ah,
MS Dhoni. But there were talks. I remember this being a thing,
that's
or maybe it was
crazy.
rumors or whatever it was. But yeah, Fawad Khan, amazing. That all being said, for me, the star was Noori Nath's actor, Hamza Ali Abbasi. I think the way he
Yeah.
pulled off that role, end of the movie, until he found out that, the sister is dead and Maula did it, right? Okay. Up until that point, I was like, dude, okay, he's doing a really, really good job. But as soon as he changed his entire position on the in the film, I was like, yeah, I have to give this movie. I don't care the name is Legend of Maula Jatt. It should have been Legend Noori Nath, right? Because of the way that it was so good. The way he acted, right? Even the violence, even the action sequences, I could tell that you sometimes you had stuntmen there, which is also why you have
Right.
long hair and
There was a
beard,
few,
so it's a
yeah.
lot easier to hide. But the fight sequences were really, really good. Like this is the I'll show you. I'll find you footage of what Pakistani fighting looks like in every other movie, unless it's a Bilal Lashari movie, and then you'll be like, oh yeah, this is like RRR versus me directing my first film. Okay, that is the difference. If you want to
It
compare
can't
anything,
be that bad.
it's
See, if that's
so
interesting because I don't have that background with Pakistani film. This was literally my first one. You're telling me it's your favorite of all time, so it's like a huge expectation right there. This film had great acting. I think you're right. I think Hamza, right? Is that his name?
yeah, yeah.
Hamza. I think he outacted Fawad Khan, which I'm not trying to say Fawad Khan wasn't good, right? I think he did outact him. I think the action sequences, especially the sequence in the village where he's fighting Muda, Norinat,
Yeah.
that was a very crisp. I mean, the whole thing where he gets out those weapons where it's got the blade at the bottom, it's got the galash or everything's called a side or whatever. I mean, that is not fair. But I mean, that's just sitting there and he waits to pull it out at the right time. That was so crisp. The choreography was so good. You see these in films all the time where one guy versus six. And usually you have guys who are standing there. The actors are waiting for their chance. You're thinking, you want to do that in a fight? Everyone goes after him. And the choreography was so good where he's able to do this or that. It was really impressive. The story itself was very easy to follow. And the reason why I say that is as a foreigner myself who doesn't understand the language and I'm relying on the subtitles, a lot of times you miss the video, you miss the subtitles, there's a disconnect sometimes and you're having a hard time following along. There's a lot of cultural things sometimes, especially my experience with the Indian films that I'm just not connecting on. And a lot of times there's some disconnect. With this one, at least for me, it was very easy to follow, even with me trying to read the subtitles. It was a very simple story, but it was also an elaborate story. You mentioned Game of Thrones, where you had many different set pieces going in, and everyone has their own motivation. And the thing I really liked is even with Maula Jatt, they were able to put his character to the side at certain points so that everyone had their chance to shine. It wasn't like Dory was just doing nothing until like a few cool things that she said. She had things throughout. Nori had things throughout. Even the dad, whoever played the dad, Jiva, I thought did a great job. I don't know the character's name because I think part of her introduction, because she was the girlfriend of Muka, her whole dance sequence, that was one of the best dance sequences I've ever seen, where she's dancing there for the Knot people right before Maula shows up. She reminded me a lot of what's that girl's name? She's one of my favorites, Indian actress, just a little bit. She was absolutely beautiful, but her dance was fantastic, very interpretive. And then for some reason, Jiva throws a spear at her back. I don't know what that was all about.
Right. I just want to say two things. So I think you might have missed something at the start of the movie because of the print you watched.
I must have.
But one thing about that entire dance sequence. So somewhere at the start of the movie, in the first about 10 minutes, because they show a flashback of, when Maula Jatt's family gets killed, and his father, who is a huge actor as well, the mother, who's also a really big actress.
She did a great job too.
Yeah. So not that mother, not the stepmother, the actual mother at the start of the movie.
Oh, okay.
They were both there for like 7 minutes in the movie. Like, not important, but they were crucial for the story, right? So when that scene kind of ends, it says 25 years later. And then in those 25 years later point is where you see this girl, the one who dances at the end, trying to seduce her boyfriend and husband-to-be with parts of the dance that she was showing at the end of the film, or in that dance sequence. And she's like, oh, she does a step and says some words, I can't remember exact words, but basically, oh, this. She was trying to do like like flamingos do this dance or something. I can't remember, but like animals do this type of dance to kind of allure the other.
A mating ritual,
something like that. So she was doing that for her husband to be, and she had to come into. She had to be in a situation near the end of the movie where she had to do it in front of a freaking crowd of random guys because. Okay. And the emotional beats hit, because if you saw that part, you'd be like, oh my god, she's doing it. She was like, oh, this is only for you, and now because she's in that position, she has to do it for everyone in that freaking castle or whatever. Her boyfriend gets killed by Nuri's brother at the start of the movie, and he takes her as his gift, right?
Okay.
And he brings her to the house, and that's why she's there, right? And that entire scene, just like the dance sequence with what happened at the start of the movie. Hopefully you get a chance to watch it with that, because
I'm definitely going to go again without the glitch.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more weight to it. That makes a lot more sense, especially with the spear and everything. But I love that whole dance sequence. It was very original and very unique. And it was a fantastic thing, especially with Maula Jatt coming back. One thing that I thought was super gangster was it Dory? Is that her name? I want to say Dari.
You could say whatever you want. People know who you're
talking about. Daro. Okay. So she goes into the prison, right? This girl is a gangster. She goes in the prison to talk to Maula Jatt, and she has a proposition for this guy. I had never seen this in any movie in my entire life, but it made sense. And luckily Maula Jatt's not some creep or whatever. He's committed to his girlfriend, which, by the way, since I don't speak Punjabi, I actually really liked her performance. I thought she was very captivating, and she was when she's on the screen, I'm staring at her the whole time, so I'm just going to say that. But Maula Jatt, he's a true gentleman. He's committed to his girlfriend, which is great. But Daro comes in and she's like, listen, and she's already used to getting what she wants. She's like, you're awesome, and I'm obviously amazing. So our seed would be fantastic. Yeah. So I'm going to give myself to you so that our seed can be awesome and ultimate. And she drops off this or whatever and shows her shoulders. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, she doesn't even care that this guy is the enemy. She wants his seed because he's amazing. Like, she is ruthless, for crying out loud. And then she gets rejected. And oh man, woman scorn. Oh my gosh, the wrath, right? And she almost killed. I thought she was going to kill him for a second. And then she comes out. And this is where this movie's crazy. I text you as I'm watching this. Like, they just killed Daro, for crying out loud, because the other people are ticked off that she's not going to be our Sardar. She's not going to be in charge of us. So they take her out or whatever with the black mask, and they free him. Like, this movie was absolutely insane. You got son killing dad because he hit his opponent in the back of the head. I'm going to take him out. You got this girl trying to, it's just absolutely bonkers. but it's the kind of stuff that you don't see coming that I feel like make this movie easy to watch. The pacing in the parts that I saw, which was the majority of it, was absolutely fantastic. You had Muka, for crying out loud. He's walking around. He's feeling like he's the boss. And then you got Fire Shafi over there eating his corn or whatever he's eating on top. Not afraid at all because he knows Maula Jatt's coming. And this guy just gets manhandled. I'm thinking to myself in that fight, I'm like, that must be like spicy stuff that he rammed his head into.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think about putting him in some food. I would be knocking his skull in, but maybe the blood and he smushes it in there. Maybe it like really messes him up or whatever. But then like you had the sister Dara when he returns back with his tail between his legs, even though he's smiling the whole time. She's ready to take him out with a knife. I mean, this family is nuts, for crying out loud. Absolutely ruthless. And I love it.
I just want to say one thing that I just remembered about the brother of Nurina Muka, right? His acting was so over the top, but it worked for his character.
You can see what he was trying to do. At least I could see what he was trying to do.
And it worked really well. I really appreciate that. One thing I think I mentioned to you before in my text message was you don't see the type of direction or the scene setup that you see in Hollywood or in Bollywood. It was like a mix, which just looked different. And yes, it could be because of the production value or the money that's been spent on it, or it could also be the fact that a lot of these production companies are actually television studios, not movie studios that are becoming into movie studios because television's always been booming, right? So for that reason, they're kind of shifting their gears. And the way certain scenes were set up, I don't know if you noticed this, but there were a lot of drone shots of zooming out and then cut to a different scene. But the way they kind of mixed both of those together, there was a scene where you're zooming out of the town and it zooms out, zooms out, zooms out, and then it opens into a door. And I was like, oh, this is such a good transition. And there's a lot of like those types of techniques, which you see bits in Bollywood, you see bits in Hollywood, but you don't see much where they mix them together. Again, I keep bringing the RRR example because I think they did really good transitions in that movie, right? With the train and with the R and the fire and everything, right? So I think it reminded me of that, not Bollywood. It reminded me of RRR and Telugu cinema. I think, is it Telugu cinema? Hopefully I'm right.
You put me on the spot. I'm pretty sure you are correct. Yes.
Okay, thank God. All right. Okay. So yeah, basically, I think the transitions, the shots, the way he directed, you could tell if you are, especially if you're Pakistani, you could tell it's not a Pakistani-born, studied in Pakistan director. You could tell there were hints of this guy went out of Pakistan to study film. This guy has Western experience. Yes. Most of this guy's favorite films are Hollywood films, De Niro films, DiCaprio films, Spielberg, what's his name? Scorsese, wow. Kind of. That's his kind of mindset, and a bit of Tarantino, as you saw with the blood as well, right? So I was very happy. I was on the roof of the cinema, basically, right? That's how happy I was. Okay. I was just, I don't have words, even though I've talked for 33 minutes, Nick. I think, and you've spoken basically nothing, and I'm really sorry. I basically come onto your channel and I've just talked and talked and talked.
You're the new Gabe. It's all good.
But I really liked the film. That's the reason why. I think that it's just, I didn't give it like a 10 out of 10 because I find it difficult to give movies 10 out of 10. But it was a solid 8.5, maybe even a 9 out of 10 in my opinion. And I thought it was in probably in the top 20 Asian films that I've seen. By Asian, I mean all Asian. So be India, Pakistan, China, etc. Like all of the films I've seen in my life that are from Asian origin, it's in the top 20 quite easily, probably in the top 10 as well. But that might be a discussion for another time because, like I said, 33 minutes, Nick, and you've talked for a minute. So I'm going to give you some time to kind of just share a bit of your thoughts. Like overall, you liked the movie. I'm glad. What was your favorite part if you had to pick one?
So I'm trying to look at as you're talking, like the top grossing films, Indian films, since we focus a lot on foreign reviews here. I'm not able to see it, but I want to get that list and see how this compares because I love the idea. First of all, just the story of a film from a country that's not known for its films and big time films going out and being accepted by audiences all around the world and doing very, very well. It's almost close to being 3 times its budget after just a few weeks. And again, in my area, I live in a big city. This is our first chance at it. And the show times for today were almost all sold out, which was super, super cool to see. So hopefully it continues to get an expanse there. For me, I love this film. And the crazy thing is I had high expectations for it. When I saw the trailer, I felt that I saw something that was really well made just from the trailer. Trailers can be very deceptive. When I saw the Man of Steel trailer for the first time, I thought that was going to be the greatest movie of all time. It's very good, but it was not as great as the trailer showed it could be the way they cut that trailer, if that makes sense. This trailer to me was one of the best trailers I've seen all year, hands down. And the movie lived up to it, except for, the parts I didn't see, for crying out loud. So from what I saw, absolutely fantastic. The thing I loved about this film was I love action. I love all types of things, but the action in this film was not over the top. It was really grounded. None of the scenes lasted too long, but they weren't too short either, unless you're Nori and you're just taking these guys out because none of them are a worthy opponent, which I thought was really well done. The thing that was interesting is you showed Maula Jatt as like this savior, this guy who, thank goodness he's the good guy because he can handle himself. You showed him have weaknesses. You showed him get beat. You showed him get stabbed by Daro, for crying out loud. Showed him with the Nori fight at the end. He gets defeated earlier in the movie or whatever. He's not a perfect Mary Sue type character. Nori was kind of like that character. He was this ultimate fighter that no one can even come close to. And you see in that final fight, you have them where they seem kind of evenly matched, which at first I was like, I'm not sure if I like that because he was invincible. He fights Maula Jatt, who's not invincible, and he's not able to defeat him. But then I'm thinking he's probably still riding the emotion of his sister being killed, and he was reported that it was Maula Jatt that killed his sister. And so maybe he's got that emotion going on. I was surprised he actually left Maula's girlfriend alive, for crying out loud. That was kind of interesting to me. But the thing I liked about this movie, again, was it was easy to follow. It had great action. You had a hero that you rooted for. You had a villain that was a worthy opponent. You had the side characters that were also villains that were also worthy opponents. You had this whole idea where Maula Jatt is also, he's not just like hard-headed. He listens to the villagers. They tell him, go and apologize, please, before it gets worse. I was shocked that he was willing to go and apologize because I thought there's no way he's going to do that. He's gone to war with these people and he's ready to fight to the death, but he respects it and he goes and he does it. And it didn't really work out too well. That was a pretty humorous scene too, where he's talking to the sister about it and all that kind of stuff. But you also had heartbreak that his mother, his adopted mother, she turned her back on him. Like, it was his fault that she got distracted with him raising and not putting much attention into Muda that he got killed. It's your fault, Maula. It's your fault. That was heartbreak. I mean, she wouldn't even let him call her mother again until she comes to him and says, I need to be protected by you. Like, really? What? Now you want to come to me, for crying out loud? The other thing I really loved, because I've not seen it in a movie before, is I think it was translated into Galasha or something like that, the weapon that he wielded. I've never seen a hero wield that. Kandasa?
Yeah.
I've not ever seen that wielded by a hero in a movie I've seen before. I've seen a lot of period pieces, a lot of action films, a lot of war films. That was really cool the way he was able to use it because it's such a long weapon, but it was believable the way he was wielding it. And that was one scene they didn't really show the details of when he finally swipes Nori with it. I didn't get to see any of that gore, any of that action. So maybe that was cut for what you were talking about earlier. And then I love the scene where he pushes the button and the little spear comes out the bottom. Yeah. I'm like, yes, finally. I thought that was really, really cool. I love this movie a whole lot. And I'm trying to think of things that I didn't like about it. One thing when I'm watching is I want some more backstory, but then I find out afterwards there was a glitch in the projectionist and all that kind of stuff where we missed a lot of the background story that you're talking about. So that would have been nicer to see. I love the village too, like the whole set piece there where they had that village. You talk about the drone shots. There was that one. I'm not sure if all of it was practical effects. It probably was because nowadays that's cheaper than the CGI. but the way they had constructed that village, where it looked like, you know, it would look a long time ago, built by hand, that was really, really cool.
It's
I
one
just really
thing
liked it a
is
lot.
one thing I just want to mention: there are still areas in Pakistan that still do kind of look like that, because
Wow.
the village areas are not as well developed as
This
the
movie
urban
is
side.
set as a period piece movie, though, right? It's
Oh yeah.
supposed to take
See,
place in the past.
can you tell? Can you tell which period? I was sitting there. I talked to my wife, and I was like, you can't tell if this is the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, or the 1600s, right? You can't tell which period it's supposed to kind of be fitting
I
into.
would say with the fact that there was no mention or there was no guns whatsoever, that it would probably be maybe the 1800s or early 1900s. But like
Who
you
knows?
said, who knows?
Right? The original movie, the Maula Jatt movie, they had guns. So that was, I think, based in
Oh,
the 60s or 70s. But this didn't. And there was no electricity. There were a lot of points. And obviously, in the 70s, there probably wasn't that much electricity in like villages in Pakistan either. But I think overall, it was just a really, really good kind of really good film. As a Pakistani film fan, as a Punjabi film fan, as just a film fan in general, I really, really enjoyed it. And you mentioned something about highest grossing movies. You can't compare the Indian box office to the Pakistani box office, but what you can do is compare the Pakistani box office to everything that's gone before, because Maula Jatt kind of kills all of them.
well, no,
Okay.
I get that, but I'm just curious. Like, if it's in competition with those films, that's super impressive.
Yeah. In the US and in the UK, over the since Diwali, I think it was about 3-4 days ago, where a couple of films came out. Thank God, and Ram Setu, I think the names are. So in the UK and in the US, those movies have gained less gross profit than Mola Jatt has in those 4 days. So in comparison, in terms of competition, right now, Legend of Monazart came out 2 weeks ago, and it's still kind of beating those two. Even if it's like really, really close, it's still beating them, right? So that's something that I'm totally shocked by, and I'm kind of impressed by the legs that this movie now has. And one final point, final thing I'm going to say, promise, final point, Nick. I was trying to think of an analogy of how to tell you how big of a deal it is where you have Fawad Khan as Mola Jatt versus Hamza Ali Abbasi as Nuri Nath. So there's two comparisons I've got. Okay, the first comparison is a Bollywood comparison where you would think Shah Rukh Khan versus Salman Khan is the kind of level in terms of Pakistan, right? Those two going against each other, or what I would say is Virat Kohli versus Rohit Sharma. I think that's the kind of level in Pakistani terms. I'm not saying they're the same, but what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say is if you were to think, oh, how big are these actors in that particular country? That's how big they are in Pakistan. Like that's how big they're kind of considered. And there might be people that say, oh, I like this actor, I like this actor. But overall, I've just always seen that people like Fawad Khan, people like Hamza Ali Basi, people like Myra Khan. People don't like the character who the actress who plays Daro, Humayma Malik, but she as the what do you call it, as the villain, right? She does a really really good job as well. So
She was
yeah,
great.
I was very impressed with everyone except Myra Khan, as I mentioned earlier. But yeah, that's me. That's all I'm gonna say, Nick. Good movie. Please watch it. Even if you're in India, I'll see if I can get a torrent. No, I'm not. There's no torrenting with regards to this because Pakistani movies you can't find online for like years, right? That's the worst thing about them. You can't find them for at least a year because they're worried about piracy. So they don't release them anywhere, right? It's the cinema or wait a
I
year.
have a feeling this one's going to change it
I
because,
hope so. I hope
again, talking about, we mentioned RR a few times. That was a big film for us
so.
here in the
Netflix.
States to get. Like, I already knew about it, but people
Mhm.
that weren't, into the know, they're talking about, they're watching it. People that I'm watching about American films, they're talking about RRR. And it went on to Netflix very, very soon after its theatrical run. And I think that
Okay.
helped to explode it. So
Of
hopefully
course.
this gets an opportunity like that because it's going to just do exactly the same. If you get this movie in front of anyone's eyes, it's honestly, it's not, besides the subtitles, it's not going to matter what country it comes from. They're going to watch it. They're going to say, that was a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. Absolutely fantastic. I appreciate Asjad joining us here. I'm going to give my grade. This is an easy grade from what I saw. the majority of the film that wasn't the glitch. I'm giving this an A+. It was an actually absolutely enjoyable film, and I'm excited. I'm excited for it to break the streaming rules and to come sooner than a year so I can watch it over and over again, because this is one of those films that you can watch over and over again, in my opinion. And I'm excited to see what this means for Pakistani, the film industry, for these stars that you mentioned moving forward. And for those stars you said are already big stars, they're going to get even bigger now, for crying out loud. And I'm not sure why you said that Humaima Malik is not a big star. She should be now, because she was fantastic in this movie. And I
She's
loved
not
her
as
acting.
big. She's not as big. Even she was in a movie in Bollywood as well called Raja Natwarla like a few years ago. But she wasn't like, she's not, people don't look at her and say, "Oh, she's a great actress," because her brother got really famous over the past about the last 10 years. So they're like, "Oh, she's the lesser of the two." When you could definitely see that she has the talent. One point I just want to raise: when Khuda Ke Liye came out, when Khuda Ke Liye came out in 2007, the movie that I mentioned, that is in my top two best Pakistani films, along with Legend of Maula Jatt. People said 10 years time, Pakistani cinema is going to change. Okay, it didn't change much. We had like 4 good movies, or maybe maximum 5 over the course of the next 10 years. In my opinion, again, people might say, "Oh, no, Malum Afraad was good. This was good." Some were good, but not all of them, in my opinion.
What about Zarar? Did you like that one?
I thought it was okay. I didn't love it.
It did great on my channel for a trailer reaction.
Well, that's great. That's great. See, it helps someone somewhere, okay? Which
Yeah.
which is all you need. But then this movie has released 2 weeks ago, and everyone, all the Pakistani trades are actually predicting this. This has now changed the course of Pakistani cinema. And there are films that have been on the shelf for like a couple of years. They're releasing now at random times of the year. There's a movie coming out. I'm not sure if it's in the next month or in the next couple of months, called Titch Button. That's going to come out. There's a movie that's coming out next year where Wasim Akram, the cricketer, is one of the bad guys, I believe. It's called
Nice.
MBG, or Money Back Guarantee, basically. It's Fawad Khan with Wasim Akram and like some other Pakistani actors. So yeah, they're trying to get into this groove where the movies can also be actually as good as the TV dramas, which people actually follow like a lot. Like, not just my mom, but I'm a huge like drama fan as well, especially Pakistani dramas. So yeah, that's all, folks, from my end. So yes, definitely changed.
Heard that
Changed.
before.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm the new Gabe for this this discussion.
Hey,
Sorry,
I
Gabe.
got plenty of practice. Plenty of practice.
Okay, that's me.
But I know I love you being on here, because it's definitely enhanced this review. We get that perspective, we get that history. If not, it's just me making guesses and pronouncing names wrong. So I really appreciate that. I love your excitement, because for someone that loves films, I take it for granted that here in America, there's a huge film industry that, you take pride whenever your country is doing something that you really like and they're succeeding at it. You take pride. So I can only imagine this is a huge geek out moment for you, which I'm happy for you. I'm happy for Pakistan. And for good or bad, this is going to elevate Pakistani film industry. It's about what they do with it. Those films you mentioned, other ones, they may not be at the same level, but are they going to propel it further? They're going to get an opportunity. Pakistan's going to get an opportunity in the film industry. What do you do with it? We'll be waiting to see. If you have any trailer reactions, movies, this or that you want us to check out here at Boring Reviews, with Asjad, without Asjad, whatever it is, let us know. Comment below. Let us know what your thoughts are about this movie. We hope you enjoyed this review. And if you had no plans on watching this film, if whatever reason Pakistani films is not your thing or whatever, give it a try. I would not steer you wrong. Asjad would not steer you wrong. He likes all types of movies as well. This is a really great one. You got to check out. But with all that being said, Asjad, I appreciate you so much. Until next time.
Know all things.
With the utmost confidence.